Welcome. This is the Drupal Usability meeting for July 18th, 2025. I'm Benji Fisher moderating. Ralph Guller is sharing their screen, and Simo Helston is also here. Go ahead, Ralph.
Thanks, Benji. Just for the context, for Simo, last week we've started to walk through the entire problem space of that meta issue, basically design a UI to allow various kinds of alterations to reference media entities in a modal, and the three child issues. And it's basically about, overriding fields in media items, as well as moving the interface to a dialog modal, as well as the last one is about translating. And as mentioned last week, most of the functionality is based basically on the media library media modify module, what we've demoed so far and walked through. Because it's basically, it moved the changes for the issue about the moving things to a modal, and as well as the one about overriding media items into that contrib module for being able to iterate faster. And the approach we took last time was basically go through several tasks and then illustrate the problem there. And yeah, in the list next is basically the next task is compare revisions of an overridden media item with revisions of a global media item. At first, if we go into into the interface, I've already created a few media items. Let's go into the find cat, and let's edit it, save, and I've also created a blog post, and no, that was wrong, and we'll edit that as well, and add basically two images. And as you can already see, first edit info, and we'll override that and edit, override, edit, override, save that, and save that. And now the first problem is basically when we are in here, on no matter in which of those sub menu items of the top level menu item of content, if we are in here, before that we had basically the primary tabs, and now I first thought it was completely missing, but basically we have that drop button up here with those three dots that is nearly close to invisible. And I also tend to basically overlook the top bar. And if you click there, you get to revisions. And that way, the current version, yeah, first info edit. That's correct. And if we go into the blog post in here, same approach, revisions. First info edit override. So from my point of view, in the problem here, it's not clearly on the media items. The revision is about the global version of the media item, which is not apparent on the node. the revision contains the overwritten versions of the media item. It's also not apparent at what point and revision a media item on a node is and which of those got overwritten. So it's basically looks identical no matter where you are, if you are on in the global context or if you're in an override context, or you even don't know if something is overwritten here. So those are the problems I've noticed there.
So the only way to see the overrides is to edit the node and then from there edit the overrides on the media item, right?
Yeah. And you basically have to know what is an override and what is basically a global version. You don't know. You have no labeling about that.
Right.
So it's tricky that way.
So
Okay.
on the node or on the media browser and on the node, it shows the on the node edit.
On here.
Yeah, so it shows the below the thumbnail. It shows the original, not the version of the info that's used in this node as
Yeah.
well. I think yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's already a bug that I filed
Mm.
about a year ago. Yeah, they show the global instead of the override context. So that's definitely a bug. Yep, correct.
Okay, Ralph, could you open my test site?
1 second. Copy link. Yep.
And go to content and edit any page. Oh, actually, don't go to, well, view the page is what I meant to say.
Oh, okay.
So, um, so it's not really in scope for the media issues that we're discussing, but you noticed that the three dots are easy to miss in the upper right corner. So with the latest 11.x, I see a nice big blue edit button.
In some context, you have an additional edit button, but if you go, for example, to edit over here,
Oh, I see.
you still have the other options there. So
So that makes it difficult to get from the Edit tab to the Revisions tab, although it's a little easier to get to the Edit tab from the View tab since you have the big blue Edit button to draw your attention to it. I got
yeah.
it.
And still, I have really a hard time to realize when the top bar is shown and when not. It's close to invisible because it's sort of that's one of the underlying problem with Claro as well as Chin. You have more or less a homogeneous page with not much visual structure, where you're able to distinguish between, for example, that is basically the navigation sidebar region, that is the top bar, that is, for example, the header, that is the main area. And that way, there aren't much visual cues, basically.
Okay, well, let's get back to
Yeah, but
the
that's
media
completely
issues.
out of the scope for this at the moment. Yep, agreed. Okay, I'll switch back and we'll get to the next task for our walkthrough. It is basically create a media item, translate it, and then add it to a new node. Just I reopen the settings I showed last time because I ran in a potential issue, and just to make sure I haven't missed anything, and one of you might point it out. As you can see, I've switched on custom language settings for content and media. And yeah, for content, I have the content type playground, and there everything is checked. And for media, I've only checked the image. Yeah, except the file. That's basically the default. And I also checked the remote video and video, but we won't cover that. Yeah, problem is unable to translate media items properly. Because if we go in here, again, we have an English media item. Now we go to translate. Yeah, and edit German. Oops. Ein Feuerholzstapel. Let's make it short. And eins, zwei. And let's save that. Now, if we go in there, edit. I don't have a German translation saved. It's still English.
Oh, don't navigate so quickly.
Oh, sorry.
So where would we expect to find it?
That one is basically the English, the original one. Or if you go back 1 second, if you go in here to translate, on that page, if you go to edit the original, there you see several stacks of firewood with nearly invisible red cat sleeping. You have that select field, which also I consider confusing, and those two plain text fields. If you switch back and if you go now, the German translation is created. As you can see, we have now the edit button. If you click there, again, just the English version.
So the changes you made when you created the translation were not saved.
No, we could quickly test on yours.
And this has nothing to do with the node overrides. This is
No,
purely in the media library.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. No, just simply image. Let's call it test. English. Feature cat save. Now, if you go to translate, add Spanish. I don't know, but
Gato is cat, Gato. I don't know about preacher.
got to. Okay, save. If we go to translate, edit. Oh, here it works.
So go back to the media library. So it's listed twice here, once for the English
Yeah,
version and once for the Spanish version.
that's
Although,
the same case in oops, over here. It's also listed twice.
and there's no indication of which one is which.
Yep.
I suppose if you hover over uh, the link to the page or the edit page, you can probably, yeah, you see the DE,
Yeah,
and there's nothing.
that's English. Yep.
Can you edit the German version again? Just to be sure. Yeah. And
Now it's saved. Okay.
oh, but this is Media 5 Edit. This isn't DE Media 5 Edit.
No, but it is, as you can see here, it's the admin.
Destination, the destination parameter goes to DE. but we're currently editing the English
Okay.
version.
Okay, I will, let's don't get held up by that issue. I will try to debug it further, but it already illustrates that it's quite confusing, in particular with that select field as well. It's not sure if you switch there or if you relabel a translation, so making a German translation a Hebrew. That's not necessarily intuitive from my point of view.
Right.
And therefore, yeah. Yeah, but it's interesting because I've tested on a clean side without the media modify module, and there I also ran in that translation issue. So I'll after the meeting I'll probably spin up a Umami site and see what the language settings actually are, if there's any particular difference
Okay.
aside. Okay, let's go on.
Mm. Can I ask now about go back to the
That
media
one?
revisions? Did you check how, like, where the overrides are stored? Because I just quickly checked how it behaves with JSON API, and with JSON API it doesn't have any information of the changes when you are getting the media, but when you are getting the node, it's the overrides are part of the node.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, so I'm wondering if it's something that like why does it create even a revision of the media, or did it?
Mm. Edit and revisions. There the override is stored.
Yeah.
And I think it's been a while. I guess about 2 years ago, I've tried to debug it in the with SQL Ace, and yeah, they have a dedicated field. And if I remember correctly, you have at first with no override, it's an empty field. Then basically that field get filled as soon as there's an override. And later on, if you basically switch back, because you're able, basically, if I change the string to the exact string the global version of the media item has, then it's basically it switches back to the global state, which is also not labeled or apparent, or there's also no reset button or anything. But then it has a value of 0, I guess, if I remember correctly. So there's some change. But those are technical details I can't remember, and I also haven't checked. We just wanted to go through to get an overview about all the potential problems in those 4 issues, as well as some more for media in general. Should I look anything else up?
No, maybe just to note that JSON API behaves in this regard the same way that the node does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so to the next point. The workflow is sort of stiff if you try to basically localize a node. It's if we go in here, we're currently in the English version. Now, again, we have to translate that. Fine. Blogbeitrag and save that. And as you can see, out of the box, it is using the English one. So I'm not sure. I've tested it. The media item would have to work if you have basically a translated German media item, then it's picking the correct thing up. But still, it feels.
Okay, just can you be a little more clear about what the problem is here? I think it is that you have already created a German translation of the media item, but when you
No,
create
the German translation doesn't exist yet. If I would have, then it would pick it up. But so basically, to make it make it work properly, you would have basically to go into media items when you create them. You have to basically translate that one, add a translation, then for the next, and so forth. And after that, then you can go over there and then start a blog post, then translate that blog post, and then basically the images, the media items with the correct language label are being added.
Okay, suppose that you do it in the other order. So you've already created the German translation of the node. Suppose you now create the German translation of the media item. Will that be pulled in automatically? I think it might be.
Fortunately, yeah, the media item translation doesn't work on this instance, so I'm not sure. I would have to test. But still, all the time, it's missing some sort of labels in which context you currently are. If basically, luckily, at the moment, I'm out of the box, you only see the thumbnail, and those text fields aren't displayed, and therefore you don't have an cue in which language you currently are. And that way, yeah, sort of, it feels sort of missing the situational awareness here. Um, Missing label, sort of. So uh, I've noted here, knowing the context of the language and if the field is overwritten or not is a minefield. You easily feel lost in between every step without any self-efficacy. So yeah, it's tricky from my point of view.
And looking at the URL, we're clearly editing the German version of Node 3. So why is that language drop down set to English?
Oh, wait a second. Might that be the reason? On no, not that one.
Yeah, this is the right page, I think.
No,
You can also
no, I've
zoom.
set basically the administration pages language to English. That might be perhaps the problem.
No, it's not here. I go to the translations of a blog post, and then I click on the German translate, and there click edit on the German, and it still goes to shows language English.
Yeah, and I think that's might be the problem because I
Oh.
have um, the detection method account administration pages switched on because I hate basically the German interface translation.
Mhm.
And problem potentially is because over here on the edit profile for my user, I set the administration pages language to English.
It actually, now I checked, the edit form shows in the language drop down, the only options are English and Hebrew.
Yeah,
So it,
because I'm in
yeah,
German.
yeah.
Oh, so that drop down doesn't show the current state. It only shows the states you can change
Yeah,
to.
I think so.
Oh, that's a problem.
I've saved it now. Let's see if we go. Yeah, now we're in the show. Oh, I hate it. Ein Blogbeitrag bearbeiten. Ein Blogbeitrag. Eins, yeah, now it's working. That was the problem. Oh, crap. Yeah, but as you can, basically, I want the interface language to be English, but the content should be basically in the language that is basically at hand. And from my perspective, I understand the following Spracheinstellungen in language settings as language for the website in the front end and the language in the back end for the interface. That is my understanding of that setting, but it looks like it is not. Because for me, it feels horrible to switch between having those in German. Well, I can't stand it. Okay, so, but still, yeah, then I have to test a bit more, but still, it illustrated already as you can see here, if we go over, oops, Inhalte, without any fields displayed there, you don't have a queue in which language you currently are. And again, as we've discussed last week, you have also no queue if those fields are being overwritten or not. It's not clearly visible directly. Okay, but I'll apologize, but I have to switch back to English. Okay, let's move on. I will figure that out afterwards. And one detail that is affecting basically translations as well as overrides is basically the point of, if we go again to the content, or to a media item, for example, and go to edit, it's most pressing, for example, in the context of alternative text. If you have a longer, as you can see here, I've been a bit more verbose, and having a single line and then to memorize it, or with actual translations with a body field, replacing it uh, to make the translation within the same field and don't have the ability to have the original string next to the to be translated field. For people with a small working memory, it's cumbersome and challenging. Okay. And then has to be noted one of those issues. The question is, there's the media items translate items in modal. That is issue number 3266293, one of those three child items. And that is the question, would it make sense at all? Because at the moment you have the translation, you have basically that overview, and that overview would have to move also to a dialog modal that way. And then keep the rest also in a dialog modal. I'm not sure if it makes sense, but that's basically one of the open issues that has to be discussed in context then. Okay, and next one is basically about the next task is override a media item alt text and make another media item decorational. And that's basically about a long-going issue that is not yet in that list included, but in issue number 293440, meta issue
I, th
improve workflows for image alternative text.
I think the issue number is 2934405. I think you left
Oh,
off the
oh, it's,
five.
yep, sorry, yep, 529344005. And in comment number 16, Andrew McPherson already provided a summary of the discussion so far, and just a list of the current problems in the context is basically, at the moment, it's impossible to declare a media item decorational. Another problem is overwritten alt text might require additional explanation about the context if an alt text is overwritten in the context of a node, because basically you as the content editor upload the statue JPEG, and now you have two articles. One article is about a certain topic, um, and another article is about another topic. And each of those articles use the same media item. And that way, it might make sense to basically on one node um, lay the emphasis of the alt text on another on another detail and another criteria or detail of that image, while the other node lays the focus on something else. And it might be helpful to being able to add some additional context on the node. Another
Right. Conceivably, you might use the same media item in two different fields. There might be one thumbnail field that's basically decorative and one primary image field that's not decorative.
Yep, that's also, yep.
And there's also another aspect that's not yet in HTML, but there is a proposal to add to HTML uh, uh, an, data about whether or not it's manual or automatic translation. So it could be that different language versions of the same image have different different data about relating to alt text. So if there is automatic translation for manually edited alt text, then it's kind of in the future it will be even there. So it will get more complicated even soon.
Yep, didn't know that. Ooh, tricky. Okay. And another problem, the global alt text for media items that are overwritten in context has to be verbose to cover every detail, which is more than fits in a single line text field. So in here, or another example has even more. I think in here, a sequence of 3 images stacked vertically with a mini and so forth. As you can see here, it's more verbose and hard to read. And idea was, I've discussed that with Mike Gifford a while ago, is instead of going with an input field for alternative text, use a text area instead. And that way it would be multi-line instead of a single line and easier to process that way.
In fact, with a text area, I think you could set the default to be one line, but make it resizable.
Yeah, or that way. Yep. And then also it has to be noted, CK editor and media library differ feature and function wise at the moment. If you go in here, for example, and let's go into the blog post in English. And in here you have I've added per default, it is not added, are available in the toolbar. You have the insert media In here, you can pick one, insert it, and if you click it, oops, where is it? Down here, you have basically that one, and there is already the possibility of make that image decorational, for example. While you also have already the possibility without the media override module to override the alternative text in here as well in CK editor. Only downside is basically the description is after the field, and that way it might be missed. And it's also it's discussed in, oops, where is it again? In the meta issue in comment number 16 by Andrew McPherson. Also the question, do you need a checkbox to make things decorational, or keep it simply empty, or override? And that's all nuances that have to be considered. So and yeah, one proposed resolution that was discussed in some of the accessibility meetings was basically yeah, use text area for alt text instead of text fields, and when adding an image to a media library, require a verbose alt text. So that if you add a image to the media library, then an alt text is required all the time. But if you add a media item then to a node or in any other entity form, then leave it up to the user to mark it either decorational, keep the global, or override the alt text in context. In that case, an additional feed might be necessary to provide some more liner notes for other content editors about the reasoning, explain what the emphasis is. If overwritten, the global string should be shown before the overridden alt text. See also task 7, local task of nodes using that media item and show the field override. It's something we've discussed last week.
Yeah, and just to complicate things further, the idea of media is that it's supposed to be reusable, but I've seen site builds where people think, well, all images should be media images, and we never give people the option of a direct image upload to a node. So anytime you want to upload an image, whether it's going to be decorative or not, you have to create a media item. And then if you start putting additional restrictions on the media item, if you start requiring the alt text, that's going to be awkward for that use case.
Yep. Yeah, but you have to keep in mind if you have a bigger organization, for example, and some of the content editors there are screen reader users, for example, then it is mandatory. Otherwise, those people would be unable to distinguish what kind of picture they are, what kind of media item they have in front of them, and it's also impossible to make a decision then if a image makes sense in the context of a certain node and if it's necessary to override it there. So yeah, it's complex.
Yep.
Okay, and next point is a recent issue that the problem is if you delete a media item, that is something we've also discussed already last week. If you delete a media item, the associated files remain and you have to manually delete them one by one. The solution so far was basically the media file delete module, which can be found here by Lauren, or however he is pronounced. And there is now an issue to bring that module into core, which is issue number 3367368. Merge the functionality of media file delete into core media system. And you have basically, if we go in here, configuration under media, you have media settings. If you go in here, that is basically the single checkbox that got added. When deleting media items, also delete the associated files.
So you've already added this module.
Yeah, I've added, no, not the module, I've added the merge request.
Ah, okay.
Of course, the merge request already behaves differently to the module. So that's the sole setting. At first, there were two checkboxes with a confusing directional microcopy controlling the visibility of a setting shown to a user on delete. So the first was basically delete files from file system. When deleting media entities, user will be able to change this value when confirming, or I paste it in the chat. It's easier for you to read. Those were the two checkboxes. That in bold is basically the label, and in regular is basically the description. And the second one was this progressively disclosed after the first checkbox was checked. But in comment number 31, it got reduced to a single one we're seeing now. And a new single label is basically when deleting media items, also delete the associated files. And from my point of view, that could be probably reduced and changed to a singular form. So to something like deleting media item also deletes associated file.
Would that refer to the would that include the different derivative files for image styles, different image styles?
Not sure what you refer
Because
to.
if there is an image file, then if it's used, then it generates different size of image styles for different use cases.
The
So
thumbnail, the small, medium, and large.
yeah. So would that flush those as well? So in a way, if it's quite often it's several files, what is expected to be deleted anyway?
I suppose it will be deleted as well.
Mm.
So far, it was made. I've looked only at basically the behavior. Let's move it back. Let's go in here, settings, and I'll uncheck it. Save, and the current behavior is without the merge request is now let's delete that one. It's cat JPEG. We delete it. And you now get the confirmation from, are you sure you want to delete this media item? Cat, can undone. And if we go in here, cat is still there. And you would have basically to delete cat. And with the patch applied, not applied, but active, and we go in here and let's say we delete Corby, delete media. Uh, are you sure you want to delete this media item? Corby JPEG, delete. If you go in here, Corby is deleted. And that is a concern was raised, not a concern, but it was stated on the issue that basically most people don't know the difference between a media item and a file, and therefore they tried to avoid it. But the only concern I have is basically for people or for sites that get newly installed and for people that are new to Drupal, that new behavior is totally fine because the difference between media and file is not necessarily important. But if you have an existing file and let's say it gets into 11.3 and that patch gets up and that new version gets applied and the site gets upgraded and content editors that are familiar with the current behavior and they know, oh, okay, if I delete a media item, then I still have the file available. And there's also a content module to create a media item based on a file. So as a fail-safe, basically. But that is now gone. And you have, if you delete something like in here with delete, oops, the confirmation page only states the media item is getting deleted.
Right. So I think this confirmation page should be updated as part of that issue. It should probably have additional text whether or not um, the new option is enabled. So either say this will also delete the files, or say after deleting the media item, you might want to delete the files with,
Yeah.
or probably the after you confirm here, the confirmation message should have a link to the file listing so that if they want to, they can delete it there.
Yeah. But otherwise, it might be a bad awakening if people are unaware that basically files get deleted as well, in case the administrator has checked. And I guess the default is checked with the patch when the merge request gets applied. So
Um, so that default would probably apply for new installations of the module, but if we're updating existing modules, we're not going to change configuration. That's the usual approach.
yeah, I'm not sure. I just after I checked out that branch with the latest changes on a new install, that checkbox was checked. So
Really? Ooh,
yeah.
okay.
And yeah, but I agree. Even though it might be confusing for some people, but for others, I think it's mandatory to know that media items and files are getting deleted and the associated files get deleted. So, and what do you two think about the string? Oops. When deleting media items, also delete the associate files? Is it because I consider the conditional clause a bit hard to read.
Um, I think that's pretty good text.
Okay.
It is a full sentence, so I would probably end it with a period, but I don't think that's going to confuse anyone.
Okay. Okay, then let's go ahead if that is not a problem here. Then, and the last one is basically about the contextual pop-up. It's issue number 3266964, which is basically the overarching matter. And uh, if we go in here in a new tab, that is the current proposal. Adding at the moment, as you can see over here, if we are on a node, edit, it's just that edit button. And in that context, the icon is correct and you directly get to the dialog modal. But suggestion is that there could be more functionality like translations, overrides, edit, and detach. And detach, I've asked, it's just an example to have more options there. It's not a actual feature. From my point of view, one problem is basically the pen button. It creates some sort of wrong affordance because the pen button is sort of misleading. It's associated with editing. From my point of view, either a caret or that kind of three periods used on the top bar. for those options would be the better choice. And also the point is options, it's not possible to distinguish. And also the question if the order is then all the time consistent or not.
So I think the pencil icon is what we use on the front end for the, is it the quick edit module?
Oh, no. Have I switched to Hebrew here? Ah, English, English.
You're looking at the Hebrew version of the front page.
Yeah, exactly. But I haven't said that. Yeah. Anyway, I just can't. I'm unable to read that. So
So switch to the English version of the home page or German if you prefer.
yeah, I switch over here. It's easier and faster right now. Okay.
Okay, scroll down a little bit. And yeah, we have that pencil icon. We've had that for a while, and it brings up a menu. And so I think the issue you were looking at is trying to be consistent with this user interface. And I think that makes sense. So use the same icon and have the same behavior that it creates it exposes a drop-down list.
ah,
And the pencil icon may not be the best choice, but I would value consistency over choosing the most appropriate icon.
yeah, but honestly speaking, the pencil icon could also be updated then in the front end to make it
Sure.
consistent. So, and to be honest, I haven't thought much about the pencil icon in the quick edit because I use that very rarely in the front end. And but it, yeah, a pencil icon for edit is fine, but for anything else or for a broader context with several options, it feels not like the best pick.
Okay, so that would be an issue on the quick edit module. I think it's quick edit. Um, but for now, when thinking about the media
Yeah.
module, let's just be consistent with what we currently have. And time check, we have about 5 minutes left, so let's try to wrap this discussion up. What are the next steps? Um, we've gone through a whole lot of things in last meeting and today's meeting. So at some point we have to start prioritizing and breaking down into more manageable issues and deciding which ones to tackle first. So do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, from my point of view, it would be good to basically agree on a meeting day where we say upfront, let's discuss the media topic there. And for everyone participating in that meeting, yeah, rewatch basically as a primer those two previous meeting recordings. Um,
So you're talking about a meeting for the people working on the media library, not another meeting for this group, right?
mm, I thought rather for this group, but yeah, it would be more ideal even if media maintainers would join as well, or anybody else interested as well, to have just a bigger group instead of
Okay.
3 or 4 people of us discussing things. Because as you've seen, each of us already raised other details to mind, and it's broad and complex. But yeah, the only thing I probably rather would do is commenting on that component with the contextual pop-up we discussed last, and just comment that the general direction is a good one and that we agree. The only caveat that maybe the pen item might not be the best pick, but that if something else is considered, then the front end should also change, if that makes sense.
Okay. So I guess you would like the next step to be having a larger meeting, either as part of this series or a separate meeting for media maintainers. Um, I guess what I would want to see is identifying, um, discussing on the meta issues, what the next steps should be in identifying a few discrete issues that could actually be fixed. And I don't know whether those should be issues in Drupal core or in the contrib module that's intended eventually to be merged into core. Um,
The
Simo, do you have thoughts? Go ahead, Ralph.
I, yeah,
Oh,
I think well, contextual links module is in the core, so that's something that could be done. But with the other ones, I think the ones that are not yet in the core, I think it's a good idea to try to fix it before it's coming to core.
right.
yeah. The only thing in regards of chopping up and identifying next tasks is the point you've made last week, Benji, about should we identify several smaller issues, or should we basically rethink some of those parts we walked through and rethink those entirely and take a different approach and suggest that?
Right. So we definitely need to consider the workflow as a whole when we decide what the next steps are.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there has to be some discussion on the met issues to agree on an overall approach, and then we can start making progress on that approach.
Yeah. Biggest problem from my point of view is definitely the labeling and to be clear in which context someone is. That is the most challenging problem from my point of view. With that many dialogue modules and pages, you can get easily lost with revisions, translations, overrides, global and context in the node context and so forth. It's thin ice.
Okay. So we are at the end of the hour. Thank you both for coming, and let's continue this discussion later.
Yep. And I'll add the issues from today again to the list, to the issue for today. And instead, it's not like last week, only comment on the usability meeting issue, but yeah, I comment on the contextual pop-up as well this
Okay.
time. Okay,
Thank you.
doke. Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Yeah, that's
Take
good.
care.